Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session. We're just going to give around 2 minutes so everybody joins. I hope you all enjoy the session. So just a little bit about me. My name is Maria, and I'm a talent success manager at HackaJob. And today I'm going to be the moderator of the Dunelm from Legacy Tech to Serverless and Beyond event. Super exciting. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type it into the Q&A box in your Zoom control panel, and then I'll bring them up at the end, okay? A little bit about the event. So today we're going to be listening to a talk from experts at Dunelm and discover more about their transformational journey, as well as hear their insights and experience around their tech history, serverless tech and AWS, technological advancements, the importance of quality focus, the culture at Dunelm, including supporting women in tech, and more. So a few words about Dunelm. They are the #1 soft furnishing retailer in the UK, and it's home to over 5 million visitors to their stores and website a week, with a growing presence in the furniture market. Their shared value of act like an owner, keep listening and learning, long-term thinking, and stronger together help ensure they're always finding better ways of doing things and spending their time focusing on what really matters. A little bit about our guests. So I'd like to introduce you to them. We have John Tarrant. He's the principal engineer at Dunelm. We have Emma Stockton, a full stack software engineer, Ryan Drohan, tech lead, and Stuart Day, head of quality. Welcome to today's session.
Thank you, Maria.
Once again, just a little housekeeping. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the QA box in your Zoom control panel, and I'll bring them up at the end. Happy to see you all here, and let's get started.
Exciting. So I'll kick off. So thank you for taking time out of your day for coming to watch us talk about Dunelm. Sorry, could you go back to the first slide, Stu? Is that right? Yeah, cool. Today we're going to talk about our culture, our tech, and how we've done what we've done in the last 4 years. So I'll introduce myself first. So I'm John. I'm a principal software engineer at Dunelm.
I'm Stuart. So I'm head of quality across our technology landscape.
Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm a technical lead here at Dunelm.
And I'm Emma, full stack developer across customer journeys on Dunelm.com.
Cool. Fantastic. So let's get moving. Next slide, please. Awesome. So who we are, I know we spoke about that, but basically we're Dunelm's UK biggest home furnishing retailer. We have over 170 stores nationwide. We do 43 million transactions a year, and 9.3 million of those transactions on our website, Dunelm.com. Next slide, please. So Dunelm has over 10,000 employees, and I always introduce Dunelm as sort of like the tech company you've not really heard of before, because we have about 350 people in technology, and that's with about 100 software engineers alone. We have about 20 plus teams with roles such as quality engineers, site reliability engineers, DevOps engineers, data engineers, software engineers, a lot of engineers, but also obviously supporting for roles too. Next slide, please. So what do we do? So our technology teams create, maintain, and improve technology across all of Dunelm. So this includes our logistics, our stock and order management, our till systems, our mobile points of sale, such as iPads in the store, and also including internal systems for our colleagues, and of course, Dunelm.com. Next slide, please. But this wasn't always the case. We've come a long way in the past 4 years, and I'm going to take you a few highlights of that journey. So bear with me, because this is a large slide, and I've got a lot to go through here. So if I mess up, I apologize. So this is like a rough timeline of the few things we've been doing in the last 4 years. And as you can imagine, with 20 teams, it's actually a lot more than this, but it would be, you wouldn't even be able to read it. It'd be so much stuff. So it really starts on the left-hand side. So in 2018, we decided to build a larger in-house dev capability. And then we made a really bold decision to invest heavily into AWS and serverless, which in 2018 was quite unheard of, quite frankly. We adopted React for our front end, and we started building our brand new bespoke e-com platform. As we matured within AWS, we sort of brought more of our system into serverless, such as our order management system, our pricing systems, and our product data systems. In October 19, we went live with our platform relaunch, and in true Dunelm style, we had a nice big Halloween launch party. So 2020 came, and so did COVID, but COVID didn't really slow us down at all, if I'm honest. We launched loads of new systems, such as a bespoke asset management tools for internal users, customer review systems, stock systems, and we brought in a brand new CDM supplier, Fastly. In 2021, we looked at our more complex offerings, such as our made-to-measure products and how we enable these on our website, and we did. And we moved all of our code base into GitLab. So we have a more robust, modern tool which enabled us to streamline and share our pipelines, which in turn helped our productivity. So far in 2022, we've launched a brand new modern SaaS payment provider. And with that, we turned on Apple Pay, which is quite exciting. A few more things to come there as well. And we're still growing. So we've brought two brand new engineering squads into our commercial space to really create and push forward our internal systems and help us scale internally. Another big decision we made last year is we decided micro front ends were the future of front end for Dunelm. So we're currently using micro front ends in multiple parts of our business and currently iteratively deploying them on Dunelm.com. So that's a very exciting time for us at Dunelm. So now I'll hand over to Ryan, and he's going to talk to you more about our serverless technology.
Thanks, John. So yeah, I want to talk to you a little bit about AWS and the tech that we use at Dunelm. So at Dunelm, we're very much a serverless first company that builds microservices using serverless technology if possible. But what is that? What is serverless? So serverless is essentially a solution where developers are freed up to focus on application development without needing to worry about provisioning, maintaining, scaling servers or containers. And we essentially just pay for what we use. Essentially, we're just letting someone else deal with that issue. So deal with the overhead of having to manage the servers so that we can get on and focus on the challenges and goals that we have as a business. We still have a fantastic platform team that keep our infrastructure going from our deployment pipelines in GitLab to configuring AWS to serve over 20 development teams, which is a massive task. Next slide, please. Cheers. Yeah, so John's just talked a little bit about our journey from 2018 until now, and we've very much gone from a move from monolithic applications to microservices, which are then backed by functions as a service. So if you're not aware of what microservices are, it's an architectural pattern where an application is broken down into a series of independent services that can work and communicate together through APIs. So in the context of like an e-commerce site, rather than having one massive application for your e-commerce site, you would break it down into, you have a product service or a pricing service and a stock service that all talk together, and they might talk to the order management service, and all of these things talk together to enable your website. So each of these microservices might have their own database and library, and they're tested separately as well. What this allows us to do is it allows us to add and remove new services easily. So if we wanted to create a new service that might notify users when we have a promotion, then we can easily do that. Whereas with a monolithic application, that becomes a lot more difficult. If you make a change in part A, it could impact part B quite easily. And then function as a service enables us to deploy our changes that the developers make quite easily without having to worry about the infrastructure. So we just need to worry about the application code, and then the vendor, in our case AWS, is just responsible for managing the server and the back end. Next slide. So what does that look like in AWS? So I've tried to get a really simple example of a function as a service and something that's quite similar to how we would use it at Dunelm. So essentially you have three components. You have an event source. So that could be an SQS event, a database event. It could be an API gateway call, any kind of event that is supported by AWS at the moment. And then the second component is your actual Lambda itself. So this is just a piece of code, piece of logic that sits in the cloud. It receives that event source and then performs some application logic. And then the third component is the destination, or what you're going to do with after you've completed that kind of application code. So that might be calling another AWS managed service, like inserting a record to a database or pushing to a queue, or it could be as simple as sending to an external endpoint. The majority of services at Dunelm would implement some kind of function as a service. And you might have 4 or 5, you might have several of these instances of these within one single microservice with all different kind of event sources and targets. And it enables us to build event-driven architectures easily. So next slide. Yeah, so that's a little bit about the kind of the internals of our microservices, but how do our microservices actually communicate with each other? Because that's one of the difficulties with this approach. You have say you have a product service and a pricing service and a stock service. How do they communicate to each other? How does the pricing service let the product service know that it's got a new price? So there's a few different messaging tools that AWS offer, and we make use of these three primarily. They're not mutually exclusive, so we could use all three, or we could use some combination in a service. The first one is SQS. It's essentially a queue-based service run by Amazon. So it sits in between components. And if you want to publish a message to the queue, then your consumer can listen to that and pick them up off the queue whenever they're ready to. So it supports asynchronous tasks, and it allows us to decouple our components and run them and fail independently. So the fault tolerance of the overall system is a lot better. It can help also if one system is not able to scale as fast as another. So say you have a really great system that has a large amount of data that it's publishing, but then your consumer service isn't quite at that level. If you put a queue in between the two, then that can help manage the throughput between the two. In terms of SNS, so this is slightly different. It publishes messages to other services via a publish subscribe method. So say if the pricing service wanted to let the product service know that it's created a new price, then it could publish a message to the SNS topic, and then the product service and any other service that's interested in that kind of event could listen to this topic, and it would receive that whenever it was to occur. And EventBridge is quite similar to SNS in that it's another method that we use to decouple applications and message between applications, but it has some differences between SNS in terms of its features. So it's able to receive third-party SaaS provider events, like our monitoring tool, Datadog. We can receive events from Datadog via EventBridge. And it's also able to do things like retry events replay events if they fail, and you're able to also discover the schema of events and filter based on the content, which is stuff that's not available in SNS. Next slide, please. So I've tried to pull together what some of the benefits that we've identified of moving to serverless is. I think that the top one that always comes up is a reduced cost. So the fact that we only pay for what we use is a massive benefit to us. And the fact that we don't need to have long running applications that cost us just sitting there is a massive benefit to the business. We have quick iterative deployments, and the reason for that is because there's no need to develop code to servers or do any back-end configuration. So developers only need to upload the code that's changed. And the fact that we're working in kind of a microservice-based approach means that if you're working on something like a pricing service, then you're only impacting that service and not the whole estate as a whole. So that means that we have quicker deployment times and we're able to iterate on features a lot faster. Scalability is pretty much built in to AWS. So something like DynamoDB, API Gateway, SQS, SNS, and EventBridge, which I've mentioned so far, they have an incredible amount of scalability just built into the tool that we rarely ever have to worry about. Availability and fault tolerance is also built into AWS. So if we're running Lambdas, which is something we do in pretty much every microservice, it runs within multiple availability zones. So it will run in London, but if London is for some reason, if that service is interrupted, then the Lambda service within Dublin will pick that up. So we have availability and fault tolerance built in. And like I've mentioned so far, we're able to focus on the application logic itself rather than the underlying service in the backend. We just focus on that application logic and the glue that sits in between the different services. So that allows our developers to kind of get on with the task of solving the problems that they want to solve and not have to worry about the overhead. And that leads to like a positive developer experience we found. Next slide. But what are the issues? Because obviously there are some issues, and how do we overcome them? So testing locally is quite a common one with serverless. You'll find that it's very difficult to replicate and test connected AWS services together locally. There are some tools like Local Stack that attempt to do it, but it's a very difficult thing to do and make it very realistic. So to be able to represent like the latency between services, etc. This is mitigated at Dunelm because when we create a feature branch and we push it to GitLab, which that will create a stack within AWS, it will actually build it in the cloud environment so that we can test it a lot closer to the real resources. So it forces us to think about our unit tests a bit more carefully to make sure that they're of a high quality. And then when we move to something like an end-to-end test or manual testing, we're doing that very much in the cloud. Response latency is another one that you might hear about. So Lambdas will run within a container, and that container, after a period of time, will tear down. And if you were to receive another invocation of a Lambda, it will have to build up that container again. So that's what's known as a cold start. And you might have a few seconds of a delay while it's provisioning that container. The way that we kind of mitigate that is through cache. So Fastly, our CDN provider. And we also use provisional concurrency. So that's the act of keeping some Lambdas essentially warm so that when you do get an invocation, they're ready to facilitate that. So another thing is monitoring. It's quite difficult to monitor across different service boundaries. So if you have a pricing service and a stock service, and you have a request going through the two of them, they're monitoring that request and that data and what's happened and the latency that is taken is quite difficult. And AWS does have monitoring built in, but we use a tool called Datadog because it fits closer to some of our needs. And it's a great tool that we use to be able to get some like advanced monitoring and tracing throughout our different services. And in terms of security, so one of the benefits of serverless is that we offload some of the underlying security for the servers and the infrastructure to AWS. That doesn't mean that we can completely ignore it. So you might have heard in the news, there are certain companies that have left S3 buckets open, and then all of a sudden, all of their company assets that were stored in the cloud is available to everyone with an internet connection. So we have a security team at Dunelm that have automated jobs that will identify some of these misconfigured resources in AWS, and before our resources get to production, we'll get a message from them saying, hey, can you fix this? Next slide, please. So yeah, CI/CD at Dunelm, how do we do it? So we have a shared GitLab pipeline, which is a massive enabler for us that we found. So all teams can easily set up a project pipeline using tested peer-reviewed features. We used to have each team create their own Jenkins pipeline for each new service, which that resulted in people essentially reinventing the wheel every time they wanted to create a new service. So now we import this shared pipeline, and within about 10 lines of code, you have a pipeline that builds, deploys, runs tests. It can link code, run code complexity checks, identify security vulnerabilities and prevent you from merging if one has been identified, have out-of-the-box Slack integration, and like I said earlier, it also creates all of our resources in the cloud. And next slide. So some of the technology we use at Dunelm, and this isn't an exhaustive list, but it's some of the main ones that we do use. So we use TypeScript, Node, and AWS for the back end. We use front end we use React for the front end, and Fastly as our CDN. In the data space, we use Python, and if we're provisioning infrastructure, so if where we're trying to tell AWS, hey, this is the resources I want for this service, then we'll use CDK, CloudFormation, and Terraform. We use GA, Google Analytics on the front end with Prismic as our headless CMS. And Datadog, like I've mentioned, we use that for monitoring, along with Algolia, which is our search index. And next slide. So I wanted to put some numbers together to kind of like represent how much AWS we actually use at Dunelm and what kind of scale we're doing this at. So we have over 220 stacks, which make use of 42 different AWS managed services. We have over 1,500 Lambdas that produce about 2 billion requests in the last month. We have about 80 DynamoDB databases in production and 21,000 GitLab pipelines executions that support this. We have 40 million Fastly requests per month, and we send a ridiculous amount of logs from CloudWatch to Datadog. So 70 terabytes of logs each month. Next slide. And finally, I want to just quickly touch on our partnership with AWS. So we have a direct link to AWS where we can discuss any technical challenges. So if we're stepping into a new space and we're not quite sure about a service that we want to use, or we think it might be useful, but no one really has experience with it, then we can jump on a call with a subject matter expert from AWS who can kind of work us through the problem. And if we're going down the wrong route, they can suggest a different architecture that we might want to consider. We can also get support on any bugs that we're dealing with, even if it's not AWS related. If it's just something that we're doing ourselves and we can't quite work out what's going on, then we can again jump on a call with a subject matter expert. And then occasionally AWS will provide talks on new architectural methods and technologies within that they're considering. So micro front ends is one that you will have heard of in this talk already. That's something they would have come to Dunelm in the office and talk to us about. So we have a very close partnership with AWS. And I'll pass off to Stuart to talk about quality.
So thanks, Ryan. So in terms of quality at Dunelm, so obviously we've talked about the technologies we use, our relationship with AWS, and with that comes a different level of complexity across our technology landscapes, and to be able to deliver a quality product through and leveraging the use of all that technology, we need to think about what quality really means to us at Dunelm, and most importantly, what it means to our customers. So how we look at quality at Dunelm, we want to focus on delivering, the right value to our customers based on, what they need, but also doing it in the right way. So leveraging all the technology that we've spoken about to really deliver that at speed and ensuring that it adds value to our customers for every single release that we're delivering. Now, we also mentioned that we've got 20 plus delivery teams as well. And for every single one of those delivery teams, the quality of what we deliver will also be subjective. So potentially every single one of those teams may be delivering to a different customer or a different customer base. And those customer needs will change as well. So it's really important that we really know our customers and make sure that we're focusing on how we're delivering for them. Now, often what we do is we'll focus on the what. So what is it we need to build? What is it we need to test? But actually, for us even to get to the what, there's a whole host of other things that we also need and should be considering. And this is where our teams come together and really try and answer these questions as one. So thinking about why are we actually trying to do this thing in the first place? What problem does it solve? Are we just doing it because it's really cool and it's really shiny and it's really new? Is it really going to add benefit to our customer? Now, who are the customer, in this instance? So it could be somebody external to Dunelm that is purchasing a product from us, or it could be somebody internal that is actually using the software or the technologies that we're building to support our customers. So, we've got a whole host of different customers, both internally and externally, whose needs will be different. And then we want to focus on the how we're doing it. So the how is, again, kind of talking about the technology and the technology we're using, but also how as teams are we working collaboratively together? What are our processes and procedures that we've got in place to enable our teams to deliver in the most efficient and effective way? All these things can impact the quality of what we do and how we deliver. And then if you think about the last one here, which is when, often, we look at, saying that we want something by a certain time, but actually, when do we really need it? So when is it going to add the most value to our customers? At what point? So it's not about getting stuff out the door as quickly as possible. It's about getting the right stuff out the door that adds value as quickly as possible. So, we're trying to look at it across, holistically, and ensuring that we answer all these types of questions. Now, to do that, there is a big cultural shift from one that is very much around focusing on testing and relying on testing to kind of achieve these things, to a much broader spectrum of what we focus on. So firstly, we look at quality being a whole team's responsibility, but what does that really mean? It means every single person in the team contributing to the overall quality of what we deliver. So whether that be our quality engineers or our SDETs, or whether it be our software engineers and the code they write, or the solutions that we design, whether it be our BAs, our product owners, every single person in the team can positively or negatively impact the quality of what we deliver. If we try and push hard deadlines onto teams, again, pressure can create issues with quality. So it's making sure that as teams, we're focusing on quality as, upfront as the earliest opportunity, but not just then, but all throughout. And that leads us on to continuous quality. So how do we build it in and measure it throughout the entire delivery process, from, the idea all the way through into production, and even doing testing in production? We can gain a lot of value from testing in production. And actually, if we're able to release to our customers, or a percentage of our customers, we get a lot of good feedback from that as well. So, we shouldn't shy away from releasing something that may not be quite, of the highest quality, but it's a good enough quality to get more information and help us further enhance what it is we're trying to build and deliver, and the value that we deliver to our customers. And then that leads us on to delivering value at speed. So it's really about finding the balance between the right level of quality and getting it out quick enough to get value back and learn from the customers that we're delivering to. There's no point in us trying to hold stuff back and gold plating everything. We're using really advanced technologies that enable us to move quickly, release quickly, but we don't also want to go quicker than we need to. So it's just trying to find the balance between ensuring we've got the right level of quality that adds value to our customers, and we're doing it as quickly as we possibly can. Now, to do that, we focus on quality engineering. So software testing is part of quality engineering. And often when you talk about DevOps, and you focus very much on things like continuous testing, you're testing throughout the DevOps life cycle. And often that's referred to as, in a lot of ways, by using automation and then the tools that enable you to do that as well. But that's only half of what quality engineering is. The other half of quality engineering is very much about the people, the culture, and the mindset, and the stuff that I've just been talking about as well. So if you bring these two together, that's really what quality engineering means. So having the tools and the automation and the really cool technology, but having the people that can really leverage that with the right purpose and the right mindset to ensure that we've got that balanced approach between speed, quality, etc., and we're doing it in a collaborative way. So, as teams, focusing on how can we improve, how can we get better, how can the quality of what we deliver improve, rather than kind of asking why wasn't that tested, those kind of things. So bringing these two entities together really helps us drive the stuff that I've just been talking about, and delivering continuous quality, doing it at speed, and taking whole team ownership. And that's the quality engineering approach. And then how do we measure that? So insights that we use are quite varied, actually. So often, most organizations will focus on defects and bugs that get out into production. We refer to them as escaped issues. And these are issues that for every release we put out, we look at has the release, or could the release have created a major incident or a priority one incident, as we call them at Dunelm. And these are high impact incidents for customers. But it's not just about how many, it's really looking at trends in line with the number of releases we put out there as well, and other metrics. So for example, if we're increasing the number of releases, there might be a level of expectation that escaped issues may increase slightly, but we want it to trend in alignment. So at the moment, we put out hundreds of releases a month, and we're probably trending at around about 2% of those where we have an incident of this nature. And then it's about learning from that and saying, why did that happen? Not why wasn't that tested, but why is that happening? And it could be that we've got too much work in progress, or pushing our teams too hard. So there's a number of things that could play into why the quality of that release might not have been as good as it could have been, and also as per other releases. So it's bringing a lot of information together rather than just looking at the number of issues. System performance trends is another thing that we're really focusing on. So site speed on Dunelm.com is a massive focus for us, but it is across all our technology landscapes. How do we build better monitoring and performance engineering and testing capabilities to enable us to really ensure that our architectures and our systems and our applications are performant and supporting of the customer, and providing all the teams that support those applications with what they need from a monitoring perspective, etc. Tech debt, we want to make sure that firstly, we're limiting the amount of tech debt that we do introduce, but by nature we will introduce tech debt. But it's about how do we respond to that? How do we fix that? How do we ensure that we're not continuously building on flaky foundations that will come back and bite us in the future? And then customer feedback is something that we really want to get better at, in terms of understanding, have we delivered the right value, the right thing to the customer? It doesn't really matter if all the tests pass, everything's green, it's really fast and stuff like that. If it gets into the customer hands and actually they're not really happy with it, that doesn't mean we've delivered a quality product at the end of the day. So customer feedback is really interesting, in an area that we want to explore more in terms of how we get and generate that. And then a couple of other things here. So test coverage, we're not focusing on how many tests we've got, how many pass and fail, how many automation tests we have. Those things, do feed into it, but it's very much about, do we have the right tests in the right places as well? And actually that's more important to start with anyway. So, there's no point in having hundreds, thousands of tests at the front end, which are going to really slow us down and be brittle, when actually we should be putting those tests in the lower layers of our technology stacks, the tests that give us the fastest feedback and give us the most value early. And then also looking at our pipelines and release trends. So if our pipelines are flaky, they're not stable, they're slow, they're clunky, that's not good, right? We can't get the quality code that we're building and want to get out quick enough, and we can't support it either should there be an issue. So our pipelines are really important, and how we release and approach releases is just as important. So we're looking at all this stuff from a quality perspective, not just the software itself once it's been built, and does it function correctly. And as I say, we focus on the customer and the behavior. So we want to make sure that everything we're doing is being done with the customer in mind. Now, I've spoken a bit about culture there, and I'm going to hand back over to John to talk more holistically about culture at Dunelm.
Exciting. Hi, yeah, so culture is a big part of Dunelm technology, and there's lots of parts of culture. but we have a limited time. So I'm only going to talk about sort of personal growth and how we support and encourage personal growth for colleagues at Dunelm. So the first slide, so Hackathon Innovation Day. So once a quarter, we run a 2-day hackathon at Dunelm. This is sort of allow our teams to get creative and innovate where they can, improve current processes, or just create something new entirely, basically. And obviously, the main goal of this is to collaborate, learn, and most importantly, have fun. On the left here, you're actually seeing an example of one we had 2 weeks ago. And basically what it is, one of the teams created a in-website mobile augmented reality shopping experience. So you can see it's pretty cool. And there's also some examples of other things on the slide that came out of that hackathon. We had 17 teams though, so I couldn't list it all. And yeah, very exciting. Next slide, please. So conferences are a great way to learn, get together and boost morale. And we do pretty much as many as we can. So we do have an individual conference budget for our engineers, so you can attend any conference that interests you and can help you further your personal development. But we also attend AWS events en masse. So this year we took over 30 people to AWS Summit and AWS EDA Day. And because we have such a great relationship with AWS, they sort of put events on for us. So in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see us at about 70 of us at AWS's offices, where they held a deep racer machine learning day for us, where essentially we used machine learning to drive an RC car around a track, which is pretty cool. Next slide, please. So as well as all that good stuff, oh, sorry, slide before. I'll slide back, thank you. Whereas all that good stuff, we also have our Dunelm Technology blog where we talk about pretty much everything techie and personal development, etc. We have an internal learning charter, which allows you to control your personal development. And we also have resources like A Cloud Guru, Pluralsight, Egghead, and we even sponsor AWS certificates if you wanted to certify yourself. We put aside about 20% of our time to pay back our tech debt. And every payday Friday is basically a day just for you to work on your personal development. Next slide, please. But if you want to hear more about it, and not just from me, you can watch this podcast by our brilliant Director of Digital, Paul Kerrison, where he talks all about Dunelm, our ethos and how we work in technology. And I'll pass over now to Emma to talk about diversity.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I want to talk to you all about diversity at Dunelm and what we're doing to try and promote diversity both of people and thought at Dunelm as well. So we have various colleague networks, which are networks that are open to absolutely anybody who wants to join. They meet on a monthly basis just to talk about different things on how they can like raise more awareness throughout Dunelm, different events that they can put on as well. As an example of those, we have the LGBTQ+ network who for Pride Month this year, they went to quite a few of the different Pride events around the UK, dependent on where the colleagues are, as we do have colleagues all over the UK. So they were able to attend those and represent Dunelm there. As part of the ethnicity and race network, recently for Black History Month, last week actually, we had a guest speaker, Nicole McGill-Higgins, who came in to talk about race equality and inclusion. She's an award-winning campaigner, coach and motivational speaker, so it was really inspiring to listen to her. And there was also a Q&A at the end of that event as well. And today we had a panel come in as well to do another talk and more Q&A, which was really interesting as well. We also have the Disability and Neurodiversity Network and the Gender Equality Network as well. As part of the gender equality, we do have one of the focuses, which is women in tech, and that's getting more women into technology roles and helping to give them the same experiences and opportunities to go through and get promotion into more leadership roles throughout technology and hopefully here at Dunelm as well. So part of the Women in Tech things that we do at Dunelm, we have quarterly events, which are all virtual. And we started these up late last year. We have them different formats each time. Sometimes we have guest speakers come in to talk about like their experiences in tech. We also have people from within Dunelm talking, and sometimes we have more interactive events too, where we can all get involved and talk about what's going on with us. These events are open to everybody. You don't have to be a women in tech to come to those. We want, as many people as possible to come, so we can talk to as many people there as well. There's also plenty of opportunities to attend conferences. I've been to a couple of the Women in Tech conferences myself through Dunelm, which is great to hear about different women across technology as a whole, and not just at Dunelm. One of the initiatives that we've recently got involved in is we sponsored 10 women who came in through a Code First Skills nano degree. So this nano degree was an opportunity to give women an introduction into different coding languages, technologies, and ways of working. And they could choose from 3 different routes, which were data, software, and full stack. And Dunelm hired 3 women from the data route and 7 women from the full stack route to come in and join Dunelm in their first technology role, to be able to support them as best we can. We gave each of these women a tech buddy, so someone who already works at Dunelm, that they could have a touch point, like a point of contact to ask any questions, both about Dunelm itself and about coding and things like that too. And that was a way that we wanted to help them to transition as smoothly as possible into that first technology role. Sometimes you want someone to ask questions, like silly questions like, how much holiday do we get, and things like that. So it was a great way to just help them feel a bit more comfortable when they started in that that first journey into tech. We want to continue supporting these women as well, and any more women that come into Dunelm, to help them progress their careers, so to help them with their early career development, and also then, as I mentioned before, giving them the same experiences and opportunities to grow as developers and hopefully grow into those more senior leadership roles as well. And we know we do still have a long way to go, but we're committed to getting there, and we're really excited about where it's going to take us as well. So thank you everyone for listening and for taking your time out of your afternoon. Are there any questions at all?
Amazing. Thank you so much for the talk. It was really inspiring, really amazing. One of the questions that we have is, how do you handle scaling to stay within the Lambda and AWS limits?
Yeah, I can take this one. So if it depends what kind of limit you're hitting. So if it's within Lambda and you're hitting the max concurrency limit, so you're allowed 1,000 concurrent executions, then you could consider defining like a concurrency limit on your Lambda. So that's what we do at Dunelm. We're pretty strict with, we kind of assess, like, if we're making a Lambda or a system, then what is the what's the concurrency that we're expecting out of that system, and we put a limit on that Lambda within a certain service so that it doesn't just blow up the entire concurrency allocated for the account. If you are actually reaching the limit and you've done that, it might be worth kind of assessing what does your accounts actually look like. Can you split them up? So if you have pretty much everything in one AWS account, can you start to look at breaking it up into, like, you have a front end AWS account and a back end, or split by, maybe, I know certain companies do by departments, but that has its own challenges, but you would get around, or you'd have your 1,000 concurrency limit within each separate account, so be able to get around it that way. Also, if look at the type of tasks that you're completing. So if it's something that's like a batch processing task and it takes longer than 15 minutes and you're running into timeouts with AWS Lambda, maybe look at whether Lambda's the right tool for that task. Maybe you want to instead look at step functions and stitch those kind of events together, so you can get around some of those limits. I hope that answers it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Paul is interested to hear how quickly you get from code board to production and what the process is. Is it fully automated?
I can say that, I guess. I don't mind. So code board, I don't know what that is. I'm assuming you mean pull request. Maybe it's just different lingo. So if a piece of code is approved for like a merge request and it is merged, to go through a pipeline, it could take anywhere between a few minutes to a few minutes. I'd say, yeah, maybe it varies based on the deployment stages and the service you're on. We do use continuous deployment in some areas. Some areas we're still on continuous delivery, but for the most part, yeah, it's not really that long, unless there's a legacy monolithic system, which we have very few of. It might be longer. It might be on the 20 minutes sort of time. I hope that answers your question.
All right, perfect. Thank you. And was it hard to get managers and CEOs on board? And did it take a lot of changes up to allow you to move away from the legacy systems? Sorry.
Yeah, happy to try and take this one. So I think it didn't just happen overnight. It was a journey that Dunelm went on even before we made the decision to move to the technology platform that we moved to. And the main thing really is about ensuring that whatever we're doing, whatever technologies we're choosing, we're doing it with the business and the future of the business in mind. So it's not just about choosing the new shiny technologies because it's really cool and hip and we want to be in the most advanced. It's about ensuring that that's going to set us up for the best opportunities moving forward. So, bringing people on that journey, having those discussions, and that's one thing that we're really good at Dunelm is working collaboratively, even at our C-suite and below to kind of ensure that we're doing and making the right decisions with the business in mind. So we work very closely with everybody to do that. So it's an ongoing thing. We're always questioning each other whether, should we do this way? Should we do it that way? Sometimes, we get to try new stuff. Sometimes we don't get to try new stuff, but it's all with the business and, the best the business stakes, in mind in terms of how it moves us forward.
Absolutely. Thank you. And what would be the reason you would say someone in tech should join Dunelm?
Everybody's really quiet, so I think I'll jump in quickly and everybody else can add their bit. I think from my perspective, one of the things, and it's going to sound a little bit cliche, but the people are amazing. And the fact that we're able to, the talent that we have at Dunelm, you can learn so much from everybody on a day-to-day basis. We are very much about trying new things and innovating, and hopefully some of the stuff that come through in this presentation kind of highlights those things. And, I think just those things alone really kind of make it an exciting place and fun place to work. So that's my thoughts on it anyway. I don't know about anybody else.
I'll give you my take on it. So why would I, as someone who doesn't work Dunelm? So Dunelm is very mature in terms of an e-commerce site with AWS, which is a massively exciting thing. I think at Dunelm, you get lots of empowerment as well. So innovation is one thing, but you get lots of empowerment to just go off and fix a problem, which is quite exciting. And although we've got this amazing ways of working, we've got this good platform set up, there's also so much more we can go after, so much more. So it's just a really exciting time to be at Dunelm, and it has been for the last few years I've been here, to be fair. We're always moving forward. So yeah, I very much recommend it.
Amazing. Thank you. Anna from the audience, she wants to know, how did you manage your strategic technology roadmap alongside the business priorities? So new features, new products.
So I think if we're talking about in terms of the original replatform, when we went through that whole process, there was a lot of tough decisions that needed to be made. What do we need versus what do we really want in the future? So from a replatforming perspective, we even replatformed iteratively. And some of the features that we had on the old website initially we didn't have on the new website, because we couldn't deliver everything at the same time. So it was about delivering what we felt was the most valuable to get us onto the new platform, and then build off of there. And it's been an ongoing journey in terms of then deciding what's next. There's some things that we just need to do, and so even on day one we hadn't replaced all the legacy tech, so we needed to continue to do that throughout, whilst also considering the new features. So it's just finding that balance between the new stuff that will add more value versus the stuff we just need to do, and continue to improve the platform.
Amazing, thank you. And Emmanuel wants to know a little bit more about your automated testing.
I mean, I can jump in on that again if needs be. So in terms of, I just read the question in the chat actually. Can you please talk more about it? So in terms of our automated testing, how we do approach that is we very much focus on automating the stuff that adds value, and removing repetition. So we're not in this game of we need to automate everything because we think it's the right thing to do. We will again utilize automation to then leverage other types of testing. So if in the sense of where we can replace manual activity, repetition, etc., that's what we will do. However, we will then utilize quality engineers and other members of the team to do other types of testing, like exploration or that kind of thing. So automation is very much about, for us, it's part of the overall testing that we do. It's not solely the overall testing that we do. In our pipelines, obviously, we want to make sure we've got the right testing, as I mentioned, in the right places. So we've got a lot of automation in our pipelines. And that's through a number of things, not just functional, but also performance and et cetera. So yeah, we don't look at automation as being as a silver bullet and solving all our problems, but we do leverage it to get the benefits from speed, agility, and removing a lot of that sort of repetition in terms of the testing that we need to do at all the layers that we do it as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And how would you measure tech debt build-up?
Does anyone else want to go for that?
I can pop in here. So one of the things we'll do is we'll track it through Jira. So we have a label that's dedicated for tech debt. So we can track how many of the tickets that we're creating are associated with tech debt for particular projects and particular teams.
Okay,
yeah.
Just one thing to answer on that as well. We've also got a tech debt charter that describes what tech debt means at Dunelm, and that's how we measure it against. So we're conscious that everybody will have a different definition of tech debt. So how we describe it, that's what we measure it against.
And how is the release quality guided, I'm guessing? It's a question by Adrian.
I think Stu spoke on that quite a lot already, but from automation point, from pipelines, obviously we'll guide that. And yeah, it's very much for the team to work on. I think we spoke around that quite a lot already, if I'm honest.
Anybody else got any more questions? Well, I think that was it. We will record this session, so you'll be able to see it after as well. And the team at Dunelm, they're actively hiring right now. And as a follow-up, we will provide the link for their career page where you can find the list of open positions, as well as their benefits. If you're interested in career opportunities with Dunelm, please register via the form in the email that we will come back to you with it.
Cool. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.